Each one of us must start the ministries building it in our own home. How are we building it within our own home? Because how you build it within your own home will determine how you will bring that ministry here and build it here. Now understand that there are some that will choose not to. And there's a warning that Nehemiah gives in chapter 5. He says, next to them was Tekotan, and they made repairs, but their nobles did not put their shoulder to the work. And that being the work that the Lord was trying to set aside for them. Ellen White in Prophets and Kings, page 639, says this: there are those that are faithful that will receive honorable mention in God's book. But there are those, like these nobles, who put not their necks to the work of the Lord. The memory of their slothful service is branded with shame and has been handed down as a warning to all future generations. In every religious movement, there are some who, while they cannot deny that this is a cause of God, still hold themselves aloof, refusing to make any effort to help. It were well for such of these to remember the record kept on high, the book in which there is no omission, no mistakes, out of which they will be judged. There, every neglected opportunity to do service for God is recorded. And there, too, every deed of faith and love is held in everlasting remembrance. In building this wall, it's going to take all of us. It's interesting because there are many that will start working on the wall. And if we go to chapter 4, it starts here. Understand this, that there are oppositions that will hold individuals back from doing that great duty. Any attempt to fulfill God's desire or will almost certainly draw opposition and contempt from God's enemies. But in the book of Nehemiah, he goes through the 7 oppositions and he gives answers to each one. And so what I want to do is go very quickly through it just to show us how we can meet each one of these oppositions. The first was that of ridicule. It happened that these 2 gentlemen were, as they were building the wall, were very indignant and would mock the Jews as they were building the wall. They would make fun of them, saying, you can't build a wall. Even a fox walking on top of this wall will cause it to crumble because you don't have the skills to put such a wall up. But Nehemiah has a response. Hear, O God, for we have despised. Turn your reproach on their necks, on their heads, and give them the plunder of a land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity. Do not let their sin be blotted out from before you, for they have provoked you in anger before the builders. So we built the wall, the entire wall. We joined it together up to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. From what we saw in a very short time, I believe the people here have a mind to work. They want to do, not only want to do things for God, much greater than that, they want to recognize what God's will is and do God's will. The achievements of this church could not be done unless, with prayer and fasting, a church did just as they did. And it has shocked many in the community. God has been with us in a mighty and powerful way. God's people should always regard prayer not as a last resort, but as primary weapon against any opposition. When we put him first, you will see incredible things happening. And you thought you saw wonders happening in the last 4 months. You haven't seen anything yet. What I believe God is going to do in this church is incredible with the few that are here. The heart of those here with God. I've listened to you pray. I've listened to you talk. I've listened to the sermons. Very few have I seen elsewhere. two oppositions that we find first. One is a direct attack. And the direct attack came by these individuals saying that they are conspiring to do something to attack the individuals from the outside of the wall towards the inside. And so what Nehemiah did was he prayed. He says, we prayed to our God, and we became them, and he set watch against them day and night. What he did was he set warriors up outside the wall. Well, not only that, there's also an attack that comes from inside the wall. He calls that discouragement. And so in seeing that, he decided to set up those within the wall to protect them as well. You're going to find two things here. Many are going to be asked to be able to take service in this church and take responsibilities of leadership within this church. It does not exclude those that did not have that. Your duty is just as great. You see, as those individuals are taking up being leaders in Sabbath school, leaders in various ministries, leaders in prayer groups, even though you may not be a leadership role there, if you do not have a role, your role is to guard the wall. And you ask yourself, well, how do I guard the wall? If you are a warrior, you will guard it with prayer. You will pray for those that are coming to the wall as well as those within. You will guard the wall from both ends, from both lines of attack, on your knees in prayer. And even those that are not here in church with us, you too have a duty to be able to guard that wall. You may not be able to come here, but through prayer, you could guard it by lifting individuals up in ministry that are here. And in doing so, lifting them up to the throne of God, asking God to give them wisdom and understanding, asking the Lord to put a protection not only around them, but their household. Asking the Lord to give them strength, even though sometimes they feel discouraged. Lifting them up on a daily basis so that the direct duty that they have in building the wall, every action they take is done to the maximum. And so it happened. They started building. But then one other thing came into play. One other opposition that they did not expect was the opposition of extortion. As certain individuals were trying to fix the wall and putting their heart into it, there were three things that they committed to the Lord. 3 T's. They committed their time, they committed their talents, and they committed their treasures. And in doing so, people tried to extort them of their land and other things they had. This was not right in the sight of the Lord because people were trying to make a monetary gain from those that were trying to serve their Lord. Nehemiah saw this and did not like it. And he brought the congregation together and he explained to them this shouldn't be so. And so in verse 11 of chapter 5, he says this, restore now to them this day their land, the vineyards, the olive groves, the houses, and 100 parts of the money and the grain and the new wine, even restoring their children that they had put into slavery just to pay back the high interest of the debts that they acquired. And so they said, we will restore and we will require nothing from them. James 5, 1 through 6 also speaks in the last days of the same thing happening. That greedy individuals extorting money from those that are serving their Lord will be held accountable for what they've done. And I believe as a country we're doing that. We may say the government's the answer. I don't believe it. I believe the Lord is the answer. And when he returns, the answer will be here. But it is a direct conflict to what the Bible has requested for rest. We serve here, we come here on the Sabbath day. The Sabbath that is defined in the commandments of God. Not only that, but the Sabbath that was instituted at the time of creation to worship God because he said we needed to rest. And so on the Sabbath day, there was that time of rest. God also asked farmers that every 7th year that you have your field rest. And so whatever grows in that field would be given to the poor, but that land will have a rest. Every 50th year would be the year of Jubilee, where finances would be put to rest. Everything will be returned back to their original owner, and the land would have a rest. If we're disobedient to what God's command is, then we should accept the consequences that come from that disobedience. Whether you want to believe God exists or not, his laws are still in play. They are still in operation even today. And it doesn't matter what type of man-made laws you want to